Hello, welcome on in. So, today we're doing a little bit of a different sort of thing. We are going to be talking about the different workbenches. So, for every profession in eco, you have to have a crafting table to some extent. So, we have this handy dandy little tech tree that can show what needs to go before what and what connects to what. And it makes it look really nice and easy to sort of understand. And I do find it hilarious that the fourth level is cutting edge cooking. I think that's funny, but it's ethanol and biofuel and things like that. So anyway, this makes it look really, really simple and really easy, and sort of like each different profession is weighted the same. But as I started to get into carpentry, I realized that that is not the case now. And so let's just sort of walk through the progression. So when you start out, you can make a workbench and you can make a tool bench. These are, let's call them tier 0 benches. This is going to be your go-to, right? So on the workbench, you can create a lot of the different basic first profession crafting tables. So this is kind of neat that they've moved this to the workbench. So I was like, wow, that's really cool. So you can create the carpentry table, you can create the masonry table, you can create the fishery table. Trying to think if there's any others in here. Obviously the tool bench, which is sort of side by side, and another workbench if you need it. So you have all of that able to be built here. Okay. So then I made a fishery so that you can see what you can do in the fishery. You can create crab pots and, nets and fish traps and clean the fish. So that's great. That's still about the same. Obviously, you can make your research table, which we're going to do a whole thing on how the different researches connect. But then you create your carpentry table. And this is where things get really out of whack. And I'm not sure that this makes sense to me in a game development gameplay style. So we're going to have to play through it to see how this really feels. But basically, the carpentry table creates every single other table other than like one or two. So the blacksmith needs to go to the carpenter to get their table. The butcher needs to go to the carpenter to get their table. The farmer needs to go to the carpenter. The tailor needs to go, the fletcher, so the hunter. We've got the potter, we've got the painter, we've got the shipyard person, the engineer. So basically all the loom, the tailoring table. So there's three different tables that the tailors basically need from the carpenter. So these are all of the tables. All of these up to this point are the tables that are made on the carpentry table. So you can see just how much the carpenter is needed on a server to just get every single profession set up. So now that's a one-time thing. It's not like you're doing that more than once, but it sort of is a choke point at which the carpenter is going to be really slammed to get all of this stuff out there for all of the other professions to do their job. So that's sort of interesting. Before I felt like carpentry and masonry were pretty balanced, but right now I feel like carpentry has a very key pivotal role on a server. So the masonry table then has a couple things. It has the grindstone, the industrial mill, and the kiln, which are sort of your, oh, and the mill. I didn't make one of those yet. So it gives you these three items, which are useful, right? For sure. And the kiln then gives you the bloomery, it gives you the glassworks, and all of this. But this is like two levels removed. You've got the anvil, you've got the glassworks, you've got the bloomery, you've got the baking oven, the kiln, and the industrial mill and the regular mill. So you can really see clearly that the masonry sort of workbench branch and the carpentry workbench branch is very different. So let's continue down the carpentry workbench branch. So we have, let's find the table here. We have, is it, no, it's not the fletching table. Well, let's go through each of these tables respectively. So the blacksmith is able to make a lot of the tools and different items around that, and key point that sort of progresses this in the tables is the sawmill. But a lot of these things are really important, especially if you want to get into a currency exchange. So this is the blacksmith table. So they've got, lighting and other decorative elements, which are great. The mint. So the butchery table is really important for your butcher. They're able to make decorative items like the stuffed alligators, the, mounted animals, and that gives you, good room bonuses and things like that. Then obviously butchering, and they're able to make some grease, which is helpful for other things. But that's pretty much still the same. We've got the farmer's table, which is still the same. The biggest thing that is a good thing to remember on the farmer's table is you are able to make the salt basket, which is a good thing for furnishing, and now you're able to make these window planters, which is quite neat. I like those. They're really pretty. Tallow candles, things like that. But farming table is still pretty much the same. Then we've got the scutching station, which is just to process your fiber and get that through, but that's pretty standard. And then we've got the fletching table, which gives you new bows and arrows and a backpack option, which is great. The painting station is its own little fun thing. I've played with this a bit, and I can safely say it feels very end game. I don't think you're going to be doing a lot of this mid game, unless you just have a big enough server that you can support someone doing this. It's a very time intensive profession, but as a painter in real life, I like it. Then we've got the pottery table, which is sort of all of your decorative pot stuff, as well as the bricks, which is interesting. So that's a new little level, which is kind of neat. And then we've got the shipyard, which gives you the different canoes. It gives you, the different sort of boat related things, which is cool. And then you got your Wainwright's table, or your Wainwright table, which doesn't really expand any of the other benches, but again, it gives you your plow, it gives you your mechanical water pump, powered cart, road, wood cart, all that stuff. So then you got the loom. The loom has all of the normal things you expect on a loom: fabric, bath mats, sort of decoration. Then you've got the tailoring, which I do think is sort of important because you can get people good clothing that gives them some bonuses that makes the game a little easier, as well as furnishings to increase the house bonuses, and the washboard, which gives you the bathroom. So as we mentioned, the sawmill comes off of, I want to say there we go, the blacksmith. The blacksmith table then progresses us to the sawmill. Okay, so carpentry does everything from here back, just as a little reminder. So then we got our sawmill. Okay, so now on the sawmill we can make the kitchen, and we can make the mechanics table, the mechanist table, and this is opening us up to the next level right there, the mechanist table. But there's the kitchen, right? Oh, cute, you can cook stuff. But then we've got the mechanist table. All right. So this here, everything here, I would call this probably a normal server progression worth of time. Like, this is a lot just to get to this level. You're going to have a lot of people doing a lot of things to cover all of this, right? Like, let's look at the masonry side. So we've got the kiln, which leads to the bakery oven, the bloomery, and the glassworks. Okay, so the bakery oven is pretty self-explanatory. You bake stuff. Obviously there's the option to bake your mortar if you really need to. Then the bloomery gives you the anvil. It gives you, other than just smelting things, now you have cast iron items, which is kind of cool. Oh, and the cast iron stove. There we go. Let me put that down. So, definitely has expanded it. It's a little bit more useful. So the glassworks, we've got a lot of fun stuff. We got mostly decorative, but obviously this comes in key for other pieces. Um, the anvil, you can craft mostly like pipes, nails, gold frames, sprayers, things like that. And then on the kitchen, you've got all the cooking stuff that you can cook, which is great. So that's I would say like this is probably what we're gonna aim for on our first server is getting these professions figured out and sort of outlined so that people know what to be doing, what to be producing, what sort of input for output is needed. This little fox is being so cute. But anyway, so that's sort of part one of the benches. Okay. Now, if this has overwhelmed you, I'm sorry, because we're about to head into part two.